All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited to have a very special guest with me today. I have Rick Green. He is joining me, and we are going to be discussing grief and depression. Rick is a dear friend and colleague of mine. He runs a hypnosis clinic, Changes Ahead, located in Kalamazoo, Michigan. He is the founder of Hypnosis for Heroes. He's been a police officer for 37 years with experience ranging from undercover work to being named a captain. So he has seen a lot. Rick, what grief? We're going to talk grief. So I've just lost my pet. I'm sad. I'm a basket case. I can't go to work. I can't function. My family's not understanding. My friends aren't understanding. So this is a normal emotion for people to experience at the beginning, right? Correct?
Certainly. It's a
And
major loss. It's both traumatic and it's a loss.
absolutely.
So
And these feelings will go on for probably a couple of months, would you say?
yes, up to 6 months is very normal for most people. I don't work. I work with people who are undergoing grief and need grief counseling. And what my rule is that they after 6 months, if it's still impacting your life and negatively, then that's when you should seek, professional help, because depending on the circumstances, the loss can be both traumatic and, the loss of the person or your pet or anything like that. It's a major change in your life.
Mhm.
So
So,
one thing I want to just say here
yeah,
for a moment, just for your listeners or viewers or however they're doing this, I want to thank you for, what you're doing here. You're doing a wonderful job by taking your personal loss and changing it into something positive, which is going to obviously be very therapeutic for you, but it's also going to be very positive for what your listeners or your viewers and your followers can get from it, because you're giving them your experience. And that's something I deal with officers with PTSD, with veterans with PTSD. And that's something that most people don't realize is beyond post-traumatic stress, there's such a thing as post-traumatic growth. And the post-traumatic growth is something that's very important. And what you're doing is you've taken a very negative thing in your life, something that's impacted you very deeply, and you're growing with it. And when a lot of people can do that and see that there is growth from this, and they may not see it in the moment, obviously, but there is a way out, there is hope, and a lot of times things work out for a very positive reason. And so what I'd like to stress is there is the other side of that tunnel that people are in, that you get into the daylight.
yeah.
So
It's when I had my loss with Stella, I had to use hypnosis, Rick. I'll be honest with you.
certainly.
It got to the point where, of course, everybody was wonderful and understanding, and all the emotions and stuff that you go through. But then it got to a point where it was affecting me, and I wasn't able to go out and, our profession is seeing clients, and I'd be sitting in the room and I'd look over and I'd see a picture and I'd start crying my eyes out, and I just thought, I can't be doing this. This is not good. I need to work on me, on my stuff.
Yep.
And so I used a lot of hypnosis modalities to kind of heal myself. The one thing I find with grief, and you might be able to comment on this from your perspective as a police officer, is, when we're experiencing grief, everything around us is moving so quickly. The world is just going at such a quick speed, and we just want it to stop. We just want everybody to take a moment and give us our time, but it doesn't happen like that.
Right, and that's a good point. And actually, what you're talking about is temporal or time distortion. And it can go either way. It can be going very fast. Time is just around and overwhelming us. Or on the other hand, some people will experience it as a slowdown in time. It's just like, this is taking forever and I can't get through this. And the days just go very, very slowly. And either way is natural for the person. It's what is right for you. It's like how you experience it may not be how someone else experiences, and that's one of the major problems or misconceptions, as you were talking about, where your friends and family don't understand because they are not experiencing it the same way that you are. It's a personal a personal processing. So what's going on in our own heads is totally different. And so your use of hypnosis is just really one of the most wonderful things you can do, is because you know best as what needs to be, corrected or resolved. And a good hypnotist, a good hypnotherapist will be able to interview someone and bring that out and get them a resolution. And I still say that is for when it has become debilitating towards life, when it's overwhelming. Because
so how do you know when you're at that point? So could you be at that point, the day after a loss? Because, you are a mess, for the first.
Certainly. And Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had her model of the 5 stages of grief. And that's just a model, but it is a useful model, because when you're first going through it, everything is just overwhelming. Okay. And when I talk about overwhelming, the reason that people are overwhelmed, whether it's in a disaster or whether it's in a loss, is because they were not prepared for it. And so the circumstances of the loss can be very, very different for everyone, where it may be a sudden accident, or, even if, you've had a long-term illness with your loved one, with your pet, and you haven't really resolved the fact that, there will be an end to this, and you're not prepared. And so I guess, like the old Boy Scout thing, be prepared will help develop resilience. And, that's nothing we look forward to, but being in denial is something that really will hurt us in the end. So I tell my clients, I tell my friends and family that in all regards, that there is this circle of life, and we do have to, honor that. And but going back to your question about when do we seek help? I'll just give a few examples of where I would go with this. If someone came to me, the day after, I would recognize that as they're still in the trauma stage. Okay. And I would give them some resources to help process the trauma. The grief hasn't really arrived yet. We're talking the trauma, the shock, the sudden loss. And so I would tell them, some things to process the trauma. I'm going to give you a simple one right here, and this is based on, and this is based on an old Japanese art that goes along with kind of the acupuncture and the meridian theories and stuff that are so powerful, because I always tell my clients, we need to balance the mind and the body. Because if someone's ever tried to lose weight and they use sheer willpower, or tried to stop smoking, they use sheer willpower and find it's harder and harder to do that, it becomes very difficult because they never resolve the body portion of it. And so with my clients, I'm always doing mind body. This is a very simple thing. Now, you can believe in whether it works because of the energy flow and the meridians of the body that our modern medicine is starting to verify, or you can believe into what the association is, and I'll tell you that in a moment. But it is very basically take your thumb, doesn't matter which thumb you have, and all you're going to do is hold it. Just, and you will find that that calms you down and comforts you. Okay, as you hold on to that thumb. And now I teach this, or used to teach this to police officers. I teach it to my police officer clients with PTSD, because it is one that, you know, no matter what's going on around you, you don't have to look silly. You know, you don't have to sit there and, you know, people ask you what you're doing. You can just simply hold that, and you can just hold it in your hand like that. Now, it could be the association. I mean, think about this. The association when we're younger, you know, and you suck your thumb, it's our, you know, it is an innate, instinctual thing we do to comfort ourselves.
You know, the other thing I was thinking is holding mom's hand. You know, when we were little, we would hold our mom's hand, and there'd be comfort there, right?
There's a comfort, there's a security to it. And like I teach police officers, I used to teach defensive tactics, and you know, and when these police officers today have to go stand in that big protest line where people are throwing rocks and bottles and yelling in their face, you know, if you can just do this and hold it down below, you're a lot more peaceful. You're a lot less apt to react, because that's an emotional disturbance for any of them. And but you also can do this right here, because it is a very okay. And so let's just you know, intensify that. This is comfort. This is sadness and grief. The next finger, okay, the pointer finger, okay. So you can hold on to that. And if you really want to intensify it, hold them both together. Just hold them both together. And, you know, depending on how fast you get into tune with your emotions, you know, this may take a few minutes. But it's just a very simple thing. You're going in with the intention of, I'm going to be comfortable. I'm going to relax. I am going to, you know, just calm down. So and that will work.
They could be having dinner and the children are there, and all of a sudden, you know, somebody mentions, I miss Bobby, the little puppy. And, you know, the tears start to flow, and they're like, okay, I can't keep doing this. This is something they could very easily do at the table, underneath the table, without anybody knowing what they're doing. That would bring them into a different state so they could compose themselves, correct?
Very, very important, because even beyond the energetic changes you're making, once you start doing this constantly, or not, I don't want to say constantly, but once you start doing this, you find that it becomes an anchored, or our trigger to be comfortable. And so when, you know, we want to be comfortable, we don't want to have all of those feelings that are overwhelming us. So it's one way to take back your power, to take back your comfort. And I think probably one of the, having dealt with a lot of people with grief, one of the major things that people go through is kind of a survivor's guilt type of thing. And it's part,
I was going to talk to you about guilt.
Yes. And it's part of the process. You know, if I'd only done this, if I'd only done that, and we can never ever resolve that, because you know, if I'd only invested in Microsoft, you know, we can't go back, but we can't go forward. And what most people want to do is honor their loved one, their pet, their you know, their person. And so it's very important to realize that your loved one will never want you to suffer. You know, so coming back into the loop of, you know, living a full, happy, joyous life again would be the best wishes of your loved one, pet or person. And so that's important, to bring yourself back around. So I like to tell people, you know, when you do this, you know, when you come back, you know, I am honoring my pet for doing this, and they're helping me to get over this. They're helping me to get over this, because now you're rewiring the neurons in your brain.
Yeah. there's
Hopefully that will help a lot of people.
yeah, no, thank you for that tip. That's awesome. There's a lot of guilt, Rick. The people that the veterinarian is about to euthanize the animal, and there's two needles. And the first one, calms the animal down, and then the second one is a lethal injection. And there's some people that they just can't be there for that, so they leave the room.
Right.
And then they're thinking to themselves, oh my God, what did I just do? What did I just do? Why didn't I stay there? So there's that guilt. The guilt of being the individual that opened the door and the dog ran out and got hit. I always say that like you said, the pet is they're going through that over and over and over again in their mind, and it's killing them. But their pet is looking down from above, and their pet is fine. The pet is at peace, but they're reliving this trauma over and over again, living in the world of the what ifs and the I should have.
Absolutely, and that's probably it's like we keep beating ourselves up when we really shouldn't. And I do believe, as you pointed out, survivor guilt is very common in combat and things, or a car accident where you're the one survivor and everybody else, passed on, especially if you're the driver, because you had some responsibility. Those people have a lot of trauma they're dealing with. But pet owners, especially the ones who, have to take responsibility for their pet, to take them into the veterinarian, to have them put down. Oh my God, my heart goes out to them, because they had to make the decision, and it makes it so much worse. Now, my father, when my mother was passing on, and he had to be the one to actually tell the doctors that, okay, it's time to, just discontinue the treatment stuff. And he had a lot of guilt over that. He was crying. I felt like, I'm the one killing your mother.
Yeah.
And now myself, having been around a lot of traumatic crises and dying and stuff, it was just like, I reassured him. And I think everyone needs to be reassured that at a certain point, it's a mercy. It is a gift to allow them to pass with dignity, and allow them to pass, as pain-free as possible. And so that's very important for your listeners is, while you may have thought that it was something you did, I want you to think that it's something you did very positively to relieve them and to let them go in a way that was dignified, and that, you were able to assist them as you would want them to assist you.
Right. What about the individual that they, it happened a week ago, and they feel like they can't go on. They feel like, they need to get out of here. They need to leave this world. That's the only way that they are going to find peace.
Okay, and that's a good point, because at a week you're looking at kind of moving on in the chain of emotions. You've gone from kind of the shock, which Kubler-Ross called, the how I'm drawing a blank here. She goes the denial, then going through the anger, but then and then you're going into, the bargaining, and you go through that whole process. But when you get to about a week or two, or sometimes people maybe even a month, depending on the circumstances, you have to come to recognition within yourself that it's like, okay, I have to start looking forward. And it's not easy, because you may have reminders around the house, your daily routine has changed and anything. But I have a friend, and we both have a friend, Mike Mendel. Okay. And so Mike is very big on what he calls empowering questions. Okay. And so, when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, start to gain control by asking yourself, empowering questions. One might be, how may I best honor, my pet and move forward today in a way that would make, my loved one happy, my pet happy, and bring joy to myself. How can I get best through this day? Instead of trying to look at it like, working with people who have to be on a diet or something. If a person is like, okay, I cannot eat, I must diet. And when they sit down to eat, their thoughts are consumed with, okay, how many calories in this, how many calories in that? Will I enjoy this? Will I enjoy that? And they're in their head. And when I work with people, it's just like you will unconsciously make all the right choices at the right time, and you'll just know and enjoy your meal as you enjoy your life. And, and they're like, they report back, in, a few weeks and a few months and stuff. And it's like, this was so easy. I didn't even pay attention to my eating.
And it's our thinking, right? It's
yes, you're out of your head and back into your life.
Yeah.
And that's very important. And you do have to make that switch. You do have to sometimes seek help, seek this, the therapist, whether, it's what we call the talk therapist, or whether it's going to be the hypnotherapist.
Yeah. If somebody is suicidal, obviously, all the talk therapy in the world, they need professional help. And it's not from going over to Susie next door and having a coffee with her.
Certainly. But, there is value in seeing Susie next door. There is value in
absolutely
staying with your friends and family and thinking forward, because that is so powerful. If someone is suicidal, and I've worked, with crisis lines and things like this, and the most important question I've always asked somebody, I've had to sit there and deal with someone, one-on-one that was going to commit suicide, and because they're in despair. They don't see a way out. They don't see, the next step, and they don't see a future.
And it hurts so much.
I always ask them, how do I know you're hurting. I know you're hurting. You wouldn't be here if you weren't hurting. But how sure are you that what happens next is not more painful than where you are now? And when you, because then they switch from the idea of I'm in pain now to like, it could get worse, and then I switch them, to forward thinking.
Change, right?
Yeah, to an empowering question. How can we take away your pain? What is going to empower you, to regain control? And a lot of it is just regaining control of our own thoughts and emotions and things like this. I'll give you another just couple quick tips, or this is the most powerful tip. It's taught to special forces, okay, on how to control your emotions. Because when they go into a high-risk situation, or like police officers, when they go into a raid, they have to be on their game. They have to not be emotionally conflicted. And it goes back to, I'm sure you've heard the British saying about just keep a stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
Okay. And there is truth to that, because when we, immobilize our face, it takes away the emotions. So one simple thing to do, like when you're really, really hurting, is just to immobilize your face. If you don't make motions, because when we smile, it triggers the chemicals of happiness.
Right.
In fact, not only does the smile do it.
Smile.
Yeah. If you take a pencil and put it in your mouth, and you bring the corners of your cheeks up or your lips up, you're actually sending chemicals to the brain that tells you you're happier.
Interesting.
Yes, it sends those chemicals. Our emotions are electrical and chemical, and sometimes what we do physically can change our emotions. So that will make you happier just because it brings that up. because it's sending those chemicals coursing through you, and the endorphins and the serotonins and all those things that you need that's going to make you feel better. But freezing your face will just not allow you to go into the bad places, as you just, you can't process it. I teach people who cannot sleep at night because they have racing thoughts, right? And a lot of people have that, blah, 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 blah. Freezing the face can make that a very, very strong difference in that regard.
What I think of when you say that? That not the movie, the documentary of Osama bin Laden's capture, where the helicopters land into the compound, and the doors are opening, and the special service squad is running in there, and I'm just, even though they have helmets on, I'm thinking and looking at their faces and just imagining the absolute fear and terrorism that must be going through each and every one of their bodies at that time. But yet they're on a mission.
Yep. And I've actually spoke to the person who was responsible for actually shooting bin Laden, and he, he's very adamant about the fact that what happens in the movies, where people jump out of the helicopters and goes, go, go, go. He says, we all know our job, but we know our job. We rehearse it. He says, there is none of that. We just, boom, we go and do the job. And so, like, when people are overcoming grief, sometimes almost like in a war type thing is sometimes, just getting up during the day is just, knowing your job and getting up and doing it. Regardless of where you are. Now, yes, I understand that sometimes, the grief is so overwhelming. And that's again where you get the professional help. And you, like we both agree that, it's up here. Now it's the chemical and electrical connections that are making our emotions. Two good ways to really, really change your emotional state is your breathing and your physiology. Getting up and going for a walk is going to change that electrical chemical thing going on in your head. Worst thing to do is sit there, in the dark and ruminating, letting those all those things go on. So, and breathing. When people start hyperventilating, I responded to a post today about someone about panic attacks and stuff, and the hyperventilating, and how do you do this? Take a deep breath in, breathing from the belly. Now, if they're hyperventilating, I just, you ever have a little child that's just like, and then this happened and this happened. You just put your hand up and say, breathe, or, blow on my hand. Because now they have to get back into a normal breathing pattern. Now that you're breathing right, now I want you to, correct your thinking. And that's pretty much how I, in hypnosis, with people who are in PTSD and with anxieties. PTSD leads to anxieties. And that's why, you need to resolve the trauma early, so you don't have the other things that are attendant to the trauma.
Exactly.
And so that's why, it's like, I know you're a phenomenal hypnotist, so hypnotherapist. So, we understand that, we get people before they form all these patterns. For those of you who are out there, we play like computer programs in our head, and our unconscious plays them automatically. It's like, if we're sitting down for dinner, it's like, boom, this program plays that, I eat everything on my plate. And as hypnotherapists, a lot of times we are deprogramming people. We are unhypnotizing them for what they had before. So it's just, in fact, I was working with an 86-year-old man. And his issue was he felt compelled to finish everything on his plate. And, going back, it was because back during World War II,
absolutely,
there was actually a program called the Clean Plate Club by the government that, you know, you were rewarded for cleaning everything on your plate because nothing went to waste.
Right.
Well, he was a Marine, he was a vet, he was very, very patriotic. And so unconsciously, we rewarded him for the patriotism, but had his unconscious realize the war's over, you did your part, you served well,
Mhm.
and you don't have to belong to the Clean Plate Club anymore. And
Right.
it's just like suffering.
Yeah.
You know, we can honor our pets, we can honor our persons, we can honor anything, and we don't have to suffer
Suffer.
because
I love that catchphrase. You know,
yeah,
grieving is inevitable, but the suffering is optional.
exactly. So, you know, we can grieve, but we can honor them. And once we start changing, reframing it from missing them until honoring them, like you did with your dog. I mean, you know, you're what you're doing here is you're honoring your dog, your pet, by continuing into something that other people can benefit from. You
Right.
know, and it doesn't mean you have any less love. I mean, you know,
Oh
that's
gosh, no, no.
exactly.
I reconciled. I reconciled the grief, and I've accepted it, and you know,
Hmm.
went through all the motions, and now I'm healthier. But
Yeah,
yeah, I still, like 3 years later, you know, I'll see something, I'll hear something, and I'll still find myself crying, you know,
well,
because
certainly.
it was just such a huge loss for me. Rick,
Yeah,
I want to thank you. I want to thank you very much. I appreciate your input. I like this, the two fingers. I knew about the thumb. I didn't know about this, the
yes,
second finger. So we'll reiterate that. People just squeeze that anytime they're in an emotional state that they don't want to be in. So they could be at work and their eyes are tearing up and they're like, oh my gosh, my boss is going to come in a minute. I need to look composed. Squeezing that steadily, then that is going to put them into another state where they'll be able to compose themselves and deal with whatever it is they need to deal with, right?
absolutely. And one last tip I'll just throw in here. You know, if you got friends and family driving you nuts, your
Yep.
ring finger, your ring finger is dealing with family issues. So, you know,
Oh.
you can switch it back and forth if you got family and friends that are driving you nuts.
What do you mean by driving you nuts? Like
Well,
they're
well,
not being kind to you?
most of our emotional issues are relational by people that
Love
you
us.
know drive us nuts. You know
Yeah.
how many people are under stress when they go to Thanksgiving dinners? You
Yeah.
know, it's like you know, crazy Aunt Kenda will be there. You know, but you know, it's like, so if you're dealing with you know, family or relational issues, you know, that's the one that can help calm you down. This is
Or
all meant to calm you down.
somebody saying like you're still upset about that dog, you know,
Exactly.
has it not been a month by now? Like why aren't you moving forward? They can
Ex-
do that.
ex- Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you. Really appreciate you taking your time today and sharing with us. And I know the group is going to get a lot of benefit out of everything that you've shared with us. I thank you.
Okay. All right. No problem.
Bye bye.